All right, friends, it's on the hour on my watch here, and we come to the last session of a very exciting day so far. And some of us had the privilege. I'm looking at Dawn and Stella and a couple of people. Irina, I think you've also been with us from the beginning. So with the exception of a quick break every now and then, well, your mind is spinning now with all the input you've received today. And congratulations to the Virtual Trade Fair team for having put this whole thing together in such a short space of time. And for us, it's, I think part of the adrenaline there at the background that keep some of the old folk there in the background still going is the fact that we created a baby, and we couldn't wait to see what this baby would look like when it's finally birthed. And today was the birth of this baby, and now we're so excited, and we're all fighting to say he's got this one's nose and this one's eyes and this one's ears, but it's the mixture of all of us. And now we're just excited to say who will this baby be when they grow up, or he grow up, or she grow up, because we can see this thing really taking off. And we were so impressed with the quality of the speakers we've had today. I mean, I looked at the topic of Sue earlier, and I thought, okay, that's probably the one there where I will take a bit of a break. But then it was so interesting, and we almost overran our time. So you don't really know until you meet the speaker and connect it with the topic and the passion that goes with it. So we're excited to have Zanele Njapha with us to now share her passion and her story. And Zanele, all I know about you is your name and your face, the picture, and your unusual topic to almost, it sounds like you and Trevor can be great friends because it's about disrupting and unlearning and that kind of thing. So without trying to steal your thunder, I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and you take us through your session.
Thanks so much, Jasper. Thanks for the great introduction. It's great to be here. Thank you to everyone who's invited me and had me on this platform. I usually say that the final session of the day is a graveyard shift, and I always advise not to be in the slot, but I think that this is going to be good. It's right at the end, and this is a great topic to end off with. It's unlearning. And unlearning primarily, just like you said, Jasper, is self-disruption. When we get disrupted, I always say the best way to respond is to disrupt yourself, because we live in a world that's consistently changing. And unless we change in response, then we've got very little hope. I'm going to share my slides just really quickly. There we go. And I just want a thumbs up if you can see this.
Yes.
Awesome. And then you can just spotlight it just so that everyone else is all good. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, now I'm going to start off just to speak about what I started off talking about. A lot of us are finding ourselves in a situation at the moment where it's like we walk into the office, you thought one thing was the way it was, and then you walk into the office and then someone sent another email and everything just goes absolutely crazy. And you look at the situation and it's something that's completely different. Our lives have, COVID on its own has proven just how disruptive disruptions can be. And I like to have my own term that I call the Weet-Bix effect. If you're someone who enjoys Weet-Bix like I do, or Weetabix as they call them in the UK, but everywhere else like New Zealand, it's all called Weet-Bix. If you love Weet-Bix like me, you'll know that Weet-Bix are a tricky cereal because you put the milk in and then you turn around to go to the fridge and you come back and, oh my goodness, where's the milk, right? Thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. You come back and there's no milk and you go, oh my goodness, but there was milk in here just now. So basically that's what's going on with us at the moment. We're having something that I call the Weet-Bix effect happen on us, when it just absolutely feels like there are decades when nothing happens, everything is completely normal, and then all of a sudden every single thing happens at once. And that's exactly where we are, where a lot of businesses are finding themselves at the moment, where you feel like you've had the disruption of 10 years. And this is what many entrepreneurs are sharing, that I expected all of these changes, especially if you look at education all of these advancements to happen in the space of about 10 years. But now it's as if everything has just happened in the space of a few months with COVID-19. So it's an exciting time. And I always say Industry 4.0 in the fourth industrial revolution is an exciting time because it's an invitation to reimagine, to completely rethink the way that we run our businesses and the way that we perceive and think about everything altogether, let alone ourselves and the way we run our own lives. So it's an invitation to think differently. It's an invitation to rewrite the script. That's why people usually think I'm strange when I come in with my clients and I say, oh my goodness, what an exciting time. And I go, yes, COVID-19, oh, it's lovely. And everyone goes, are you kidding? It's because of particularly that. It's such an exciting time to rewrite the script. And as I go on with this presentation, you'll start to understand exactly why I say that. Now, just to put you to a little bit of a test about how agile you are. And with unlearning, what I usually like to position unlearning with is when we make transitions. And you'll know if you've had a baby or you've moved out of a home or you've had a new field of leadership in the team, that to transition is actually quite tricky. And when we look at the success of merging companies, we know that just because the structure of something has changed, it doesn't mean that the people involved in that particular change have transitioned successfully. So the best way to help each and every individual and even organization get through any kind of transition or change is to unlearn. And the first part of unlearning is to get disrupted. A lot of us get very uncomfortable when things that we're not used to happen to us. Now, here's an example. And I'm going to ask that you just get nice and close to the chat box because I'm going to ask you to get answering a few questions. Now, have a look at the image that's on your screen at the moment. Tell me if you can see the sleeping man in the picture. Oh, I see some people have already tapped. That's quite quick. Very nice. All right. Yes, I see. Yes, Gavin, you can see the sleeping man. Lovely. Cool. So most of us can see him. Now, I want you to look at the image again. And tell me if you can see the sleeping woman in the picture. And just say yes if you can see the sleeping woman. I see people shaking their heads. I see Dawn is shaking her head. So try look a little bit closely. You might have to, I see Trevor's sort of shifting his head from one side to the other. You might have to do that. But tell me if you can see the sleeping woman in the image. Okay. All right. So it is a bit difficult, right? And I want you to take the feeling that you're feeling at this moment and bottle it up, because that's exactly what transitions feel like. It's not easy when one thing has become a default to you in your business, and then all of a sudden you have to change to almost see things in a completely different way. Now look at the following image, and this might help you a little bit. Oopsie, there we go. Can you see the sleeping woman now? It might need a little bit of time still, but try the twist of the head that Trevor was doing. That might help a little bit. The brown parts, the darker brown parts is her hair. And then the purple at the bottom is the lady's shirt. Tell me if you can see her now. Yay, I see clapping of hands. All right. Good stuff. So now we've been able to sort of make that transition. We went from seeing things one way, and then we started to see them another. And that's actually how our brains learn. We start to create new neural pathways, even though we've got dominant ones that we've been using for a very long time. Now, that's all great. But what happens if now you see both the man and the woman, and you're okay with that? And then I ask you to go back to the image we started with, and I ask you to unsee the woman. Now, try to look at the picture, but only see the man. Don't see the woman, even by accident. How does that work out? Anyone winning? Okay, I want to see these comments. This is going to be interesting. All right, cool. So that's exactly it. And why I wanted to have this conversation, to rather start off with this ambiguity. And this is how I start a lot of my work with my clients, whether I work with puzzles or I bring in all kinds of resources, just so that we can feel that feeling of unlearning. Too many of our businesses and individuals within any kind of formation or institution will think that unlearning is so easy. They'll think that it's easy to transition. But actually it's not. It's like unseeing something that you've worked hard to see. And because our brains want to save us the energy, our brains want to make things easier for us. It's not easy for them to jump from one thing to another. So the first point I want to make is that transitioning from one normal to another is not something that's going to be easy. And to unlearn means going right back to the beginning and substituting one way of doing things to do it a completely different way. Because as we know, Alvin Toffler is a futurist, one of my absolute favorites, and someone that I really enjoy the work of, said that the illiterate of the 21st century won't be the people who can't read and write, but it's the people who struggle to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And basically what he meant by this quote is that your ability to move from one normal to another is going to be as important, if not more, than your ability to read and write. And unfortunately, too many of us don't yet understand that. And if you look at all of the successful businesses of the 21st century and some of the startups and unicorns that are coming up now, they're all based on individuals and entrepreneurs who were just able to unlearn the way things have always been done. Put your hand up if you've heard an organization or an individual say, this is the way that we've always done things at this organization. And when someone comes up and they say, no, why don't we try this? Why don't we try something new? And they go, sorry, this is how things are done here. That's the standard way. That's how we've always done things. It's something we do a lot, right? And the reason for that is because we've got something that's called fixedness. Fixedness implies that we've always seen things one way. And it's not easy for us to break out of that box. Now, there are 3 different forms of fixedness. And when I get through this list, I want you to type in the chat box for me, which one of these 3 you think you really struggle with and you might want to work through unlearning as we go through this presentation. So there, the box is shaking, so it's waiting for you to let whatever contents are in there out during the session. The very first one is functional fixedness. Functional fixedness speaks to the function that something performs. A lot of the time we like to restrict the function that something performs to exactly just one thing. So think about something like a backpack or something like a water bottle. In our minds, when we see that item, we only associate it with one particular function. And it's hard for our brains to start to come out of that and ask us or think about what are the other ways that this particular item could function or not other ways that I could use it. And then the next one, is structural fixedness. Structural fixedness speaks to the structure that something has. A lot of the time when we see something, we're so used to the way that it's been formed that the wheels on the bicycle are at the bottom and then you've got the little handles on the side and everything else is exactly where it's supposed to be. So much so that when someone switches that image, our brains just go, whoa, what's just happened? Because we've got structural fixedness. The structure that something takes, it has to be fixed, otherwise we get confused. And a great example of this is our routine. Think about your routine that you follow in the morning. Whether you wake up and you brush your teeth first, or you have breakfast first and then brush your teeth and then take a shower, that structure has been followed so consistently that you don't see your life functioning any other way. And so I always encourage people when they say, give me a little activity for unlearning that I can do on a daily basis. I say, jig up your structure, your morning routine. Start with that. Because funny enough, those who study creativity and neuroscience have actually found that if you move around the structure of something you're used to, that actually stimulates your brain to become a lot more creative. So I'd like to challenge you to do that going forward. And then the last one is relational fixedness. Relational fixedness relates to the way the 2 or more things actually relate to each other and what relationship those 2 things have with each other. Now, I'm not talking about, a lot of us, when we think of our mother-in-laws, we just think, nope, it's just this kind of relationship. It could never be any kind of compassionate, actual love. because we've got relational fixedness. And then the other one that I like to use is a water bottle that was developed by Jack Ma at his company. And what it does is that this particular water bottle or juice bottle has the relation between the temperature of what you put inside it and the bottle itself completely changed. If you think about a normal water bottle, you put water in there, nothing different is going to happen. But with this particular water bottle, it changes color when the substance inside is warm or it's cold. And so the relationship between the substance or the liquid and the bottle itself is different from what we've always known it to be. So those are just some examples. If you can go to the chat box, I'd really appreciate it. Tell me which one for you is a little bit of a pickle at the moment, something you'd like to work on as we go forward, and not just even in the time of this presentation, but even as you move on from today as a challenge to yourself. I spoke a little bit earlier about transitions, and now as we go into the rest of the presentation, or the crux of the presentation, I want to make it clear that the reason why many of us do struggle with transitions as organizations or even as individuals is because, as William Bridges implies, transitions are a process. They're not just changing the structure of something and the way that something works. It's an actual process that begins with letting something go and then grabbing hold of something else. Think about a trapeze artist. A trapeze artist, especially the flying trapeze artists, will fly on a bar or a swing, and then all of a sudden they'll let go of that swing to grab onto someone else's hands. Really frightening, really scary. You think they're going to die, but they actually manage to do it. And the point is that they've had to let go of something that was actually very secure and almost guaranteed for them, and transition all the way to grabbing hold of something else that could have let them down. And that's where the pain point usually is, when it's time to change over, when it's time to transition. And that's why unlearning really is the solution to that. And what does unlearning mean for you and I, and for the everyday individual? It means reimagining. It means challenging ourselves. So being okay with being uncomfortable. The reason why I started with that image in the beginning of the sleeping man is because that feeling that you felt of discomfort and, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I can't see where the man is. Oh, I'm freaking out. That's okay. That feeling needs to be okay if we are going to be unlearning organizations and unlearning individuals. And then the last one, we just need to unlearn. It needs to be okay that things are no longer the way they are. Because remember, what got us to the point where we are today is not actually going to get us all the way into the future. And we need to come to grips with that if we want to make a successful transition in our businesses. Now, here's a really lovely video that I absolutely adore, but it's going to bring across the point before I start with what we can start to do. What are the transitions that we can make as organizations and as individuals, especially in a time of COVID? Because when we get disrupted, and not just by tech disruptors, but non-tech disruptors, we sometimes get thrown off and we feel all of these negative emotions that I'm going to speak to. But I'm also going to introduce other emotions that you can grab hold of on the other side. Now let's have a look at this, this video. I hope it's coming across clearly on the other side and that the sound is okay. No sound. Okay. Let me see. All right, sure. Let me know if there's sound now. Awesome. There's the bully.
We find a way to get things done. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Always loved that video. I remember the first few times I saw it, I thought my eyes were sweating. I don't know, maybe it was the temperature in the room. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure a few other eyes have started sweating because it's just that kind of video. And more than the fact that it's a child in the video, it actually teaches exactly what it means to unlearn. And a lot of us would have done exactly what that little boy did. We would have adjusted clear obstacles in our way. We would have thought in a very directed way. Let me try and adjust my routine in the morning. Let me do this. Let me do that in the house. But somehow we seem to keep missing things. And that's what unlearning is about. It's about going beyond what people see and starting to think about the things that you may be missing and going outside of that. Now let's have a look at 3 things that you and I can do, 3 different mindsets that you and I usually start to embody in times of a crisis that I'd like to actually encourage us to move out of. So these on your right-hand side, they may be on a different side for you depending what settings you've got, but on my right-hand side, those are all the emotions that we want to let go of. The crisis mentalities that we seldom have or that we often have. And then on the right-hand side, you've got all of the emotions or the mindsets that I'd like us to now grip a hold of and actually hold on to in our businesses and as we go on with life from today onwards. Denial into curiosity, silos into systems, panic into opportunity. And that's the very, very last one. Now let's start off with denial to curiosity really quickly. This is most of us at the moment. And when crisis strikes, oh, I don't know what just happened. We don't own anything. We start to detach quite a lot when a crisis has come up or something that we don't understand has started to happen. We detach a lot and we become those who know not. And unfortunately, denial is one of the ways that we respond to crisis just as human beings. And neuroscience speaks quite a lot to this. But one thing we need to start to do is substitute this denial for something else. Because when you deny, you detach yourself from the situation and you become disempowered, which means there isn't much that you can actually do about it because you've detached yourself from the situation. And it was Maya Angelou who said that when you know better, you do better. So what we want to do, instead of being in a state of denial and saying we don't understand, we don't know, I have no clue why this is happening, it's something in the ether that's ruining my business, let's rather move into a position of understanding what's going on around us. Because we can't expect to do better unless we educate ourselves on what the changes are. And this is really where I want to start. What do we know? As we stand in a time of crisis, as you stand in your business at the moment, and I've written a few articles on this on LinkedIn, what do you understand about your new client? And a lot of businesses have been saying, oh, my client, a lot of things have changed. But let's break it down. Start to understand what you know now. What is it that you're aware of at the moment? And what should you be aware of as you go on? Because it's only that insight of moving from a place of understanding and knowing that you can actually start to take charge and to move into that. So curiosity is a very big part of it. Moving from denial into curiosity. Curiosity is asking the questions because there is value in asking questions. As Richard Feynman once said, that you want someone who's asking questions, because I believe there are no wrong questions. When you ask a question, that's a question that's going to get an answer back. And questions prompt more questions that prompt more answers. We need to be leaders and business individuals who ask questions. Gone are the days of being slapped on the hand by the boss when you ask a question. Because it's only through questions that businesses grow. It's only through questions that individuals grow, where we ask, where are we going? Where are we now? What are we not doing as well as we'd like? And what are we actually excelling at? And it's those questions that are going to move us through in a time of COVID-19 and other disruptions. Now, the second one is from silos to systems. And this is a really exciting one, because during times of crisis, what a lot of us start to do is we zero in on ourselves and we start to put on our blinkers and go, oh, no, COVID-19, I'm just going to look after myself and my family, me and my household, me and my business. And we start to move everything in. And that's okay in the physical sense when we're speaking about COVID-19. But what we need to understand is that in times of crisis, it's more important to see the world as interconnected than ever. Even with businesses, when we go through times of crisis, different departments within organizations like marketing will say, we don't know, I think it's HR, they did something wrong, it's not us. And everyone will go into these little silos. But when times of crisis actually strike, which are actually times of opportunity, our best opportunities actually come from seeing how interwoven the business is, how well marketing can work with HR, and how those different systems or parts of the business can actually come together. So it's all of those different parts, and it doesn't just limit us to the way we run our businesses and how our supply chains are organized, but also our communities. During this time, how can we see the interconnectedness of our businesses during a time of COVID-19? What are the ways that we can be together without actually touching? Because collaboration becomes a lot more important when we're in times of crisis, because you start to understand what someone else has got that could benefit you and how we could potentially work together to make the circle bigger, to sound very South African, but to make the circle bigger and to actually spread out. A lot more of that success and that fruition that we want to see only comes through collaboration. And crisis, I would say, is the absolute best time to start to collaborate. The very last one is panic to opportunity. Ooh, so many of us started with panic. Whether you were going out to Pick and Pay to buy a whole lot of tissue, a lot of us probably still have some of the tissue we bought when Cyril Ramaphosa said, okay, we're going into lockdown. Because everyone just went crazy. And that's okay, because that's actually what happens with a lot of us during crisis times. That's what crisis does. But the power is in understanding that you can't dwell in crisis. You can't stay in crisis, because crisis shuts your brain down and you can't actually think creatively. I want to give you a quick example. I worked as a primary school teacher before I went full-time into working with organizations and corporates. And one of the days, one of my learners, who was in grade 5, took out a matchbox, one exactly like the one you see on your screen. And he opened it up. And as a teacher, as a primary school teacher, if you see a child with a matchbox, you freak out. He's about to burn the school down, which can be bad, but can also be good, because it means you don't have to come to work. But anyway, the point is that you freak out. It's something absolutely scary. So I watched him closely. And then he opened it up and he slipped his little finger into the matchbox and brought it back. But once he brought it back, it had some Vaseline on it. And then he put the Vaseline on his lips. And I thought, let me see that. And I called to him and I said, let me see that. And he showed it to me. Turns out this little boy had started using a used matchbox as a little Vaseline container. So he's put all of his little Vaseline in there because he didn't have a little plastic container. And every time he needed Vaseline, he just opened this matchbox. But it had now started to get all tired because, you know, the Vaseline is starting to weigh on it. But it hit me at that moment. Going back to what we spoke about, remember fixedness, that this child didn't actually have functional fixedness. And that's the amazing thing with children, that they can see functions outside of the way that we as adults have been conditioned to see them. And that's where the panic on my side, being the adult who went, no, 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 you're going to burn the school down, to the child who said, there isn't only one way to use a matchbox. It's not limited. See outside the box, just to use a term that works so perfectly. But that's exactly what happened with this child. And it proved to me that sometimes as adults, this is the face we make in times of crisis. We go completely berserk. But question we should be asking is, what can we do differently? There are so many things that we miss when we fail to have a perspective, a targeted perspective in a situation. And that's precisely what unlearning is about. It's about asking those questions and then looking at what can be done differently. What are we missing? What is it that we're not seeing in that moment? Because remember, everything has got potential to be more, but it's about where you put your perspective, what you see in that particular moment. And I just want to share another story about this child, this same child, before I end off. He's actually quite a very imaginative child. And one day, so the way the things work in the classroom, and if you've worked with children or you've had experience in the classroom, you'll know this, is that when learners want to go to the bathroom, they will conventionally put their hands up. And now that you've got your unlearning glasses on, I want you to assess this situation with your unlearning glasses on. And learners would usually put their hands up and say, ma'am, I'd like to go to the bathroom. And then you let them go to the bathroom and then they'd return. And so this particular learner, at the time, all of them were busy working on an activity. So they were completing an activity. I'd done the teaching and I was just sitting back at the desk doing some marking. And every now and again, I'd put my head up just to make sure that everything was, the classroom wasn't on fire or whatever the case was. And so I had my head down, marking some books, and the children were busy working. And as I lifted my head up, I noticed that this particular child had taken an old ruler that was chipped on the end and a brand new ruler. And it stuck the ends of the rulers to each other. And then he made a little sign with a piece of paper and just his crayons that said, it said, my hand is up. And then he stuck that on the end of the ruler right at the top. And then he plonked that ruler into that hole in the chair. They've got the steel stands have got like a little hole in there. So he put it in there and then he just carried on doing his work. And then when I looked up, I saw the sign that says, my hand is up, but his hand wasn't actually up, like literally. And I said, yes. He said, ma'am, may I please go to the bathroom? I said, all right, of course, go. And then he took the sign off and he put it on the floor and went to the bathroom. And I thought, wow, isn't that just something? And I think that is one of the moments where, as someone who's worked in education, I started to realize that a lot of the traits around unlearning and coming from one normal to another are things that children do so instinctively, where they don't even have to blink. But the strange thing is that us as adults, because we've been conditioned to think a certain way, will slap, no, don't do that. That's not right. Don't do that. Stay in your box. Think this way. Do things this way. But we somehow expect the most creative children who are going to come up with unicorn companies. But I think that this is the best time, a better time than any, to come back to those principles and ask ourselves, what is another way? What could I be missing in this situation? What can we do differently as a company? What can I do differently as an individual that will stimulate the creative abilities that I have to help me to grow my organization, even in times of crisis? Because crisis is opportunity. Look at businesses like Airbnb and Uber, all created during times when the market was absolutely devastated. But those companies were able to come about because they asked the questions that needed to be asked. And then once they'd asked those questions, they experimented, because that's what it comes down to. It's not enough to just know. It's not enough to understand the concept, but you need to try. You need to actually put it into practice. Start to do something about it. Get things wrong. Be okay with getting things wrong. Accept what failure is teaching you, and then go right back in there and try again, because you never get it right the first time, and you probably never even get it right the 16th time. You just keep going. And I'd like to end off with this lovely quote by Albert Einstein that I've liked for a long time, besides the fact that it fits perfectly into my presentation. What got us to this moment of time, what got us to just before COVID-19, I can guarantee you is not going to take your business further. It's not going to take you to the next 10, to the next 20, or even to the next 30 years, or even to the next 2, for Pete's sake. It's going to need to be different. It's going to need to be different. You're going to need to start to think in the way that you've never thought before, because that's what this time and the space that we live in requires of us. Thank you so much. I will now take any questions or points of interaction. I'll also leave my details here in case you do want to reach out and contact me. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Well done, Zanele. Brilliant session. And, our energy levels are even higher than this morning, just because of the way you've taken us through the whole thing. I just now have a serious private chat with myself, because I could still not see that woman even after you colored her in. I just saw an ugly old man that tries to look like a woman. So I've got a serious self-talk going here. But I think any questions or comments, guys? So I think, Dawn, you first.
Oh, Zanele, what an inspiration. The closing one of the day, and what a delight you are. Everything is about perspective, and I just loved your presentation, Zanele. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you so much.
Yes, Guy.
You guys.
Zanele, from the old Madala here. Well done, Smala. You rocked it. You were the best I heard today. So you got a nice tone. You got a nice tone. Great smile. Sue Skippers was just behind you. So from the Madala, well done, Smala. Keep rocking. We need more of you in the next umpteen years in South Africa. Good stuff.
Thanks so much, Guy. It means a lot.
All right, we have a question from Ryan. Ryan, just unmute yourself and ask the question.
How's it going, Zanele? So my question is actually, how do you control as a company, not necessarily trying to stunt it, but more about thinking from a company perspective? So let me give you a practical example of this. Sure. As a company that I'm involved in, they're looking to grow their technology stack that comes through, and they've gone, okay, cool, who can achieve X task? Now, the result of that is someone who may have done a course in Python, writes the first thing in Python, and then no one can support that other than the person who wrote it. So my problem comes in is that now, firstly, you've stunted the growth of the individual who's written that program, because they can never leave that particular project or product that they've written, because no one else in the company understands how it works. So then, of course, the company goes, oh, okay, cool, we need more people to write these things. So they go looking for people, and they get someone who knows an entirely different language of technology stacks, and they now write it in something different. And this has happened about 6 times now. Wow. And I'm almost fighting the opposite battle with the company, saying, standardization is good in this sense, because now you know who you can hire. Now you know what you can do. And I'm interested in the perspective of how do you control that so that a company can grow and not overspend on someone who now becomes a failure or leaves, and therefore the product falls away, that sort of thing. So more interested in a perspective than necessarily an answer.
Sure, no, I understand. Thanks, Ryan. Well, I have 4 different principles that I usually speak to my clients about that I've named LEAP for each of the different letters of LEAP. So it's like an acronym, but I don't want to speak about that now. What I want to speak to is just saying that, sorry, I'm getting a call. Just saying that with senses like that, and in those situations, what I always advise is that education is the best investment that any organization can make in its people. And outsourcing is great in certain senses, like you advised that the organization is now thinking of doing, and they've done and brought people in, but finding that they're coding in a different language. What I would certainly advise is that we look at what we've got already and investing in the people that are in the company and are willing to actually contribute and give something to the organization that they've been a part of. Because really the retaining of who we've got is a lot more of an asset than bringing someone in, like you said, that's going to cost us a lot more and end up actually reshuffling what we've got going on. With that being said, it may not be the best idea to do that either, because considering what you've got going on as an organization, you need to look at how sustainable it actually is to only have one particular language that you work in, whether it's coding or whatever it is actually within the organization. That can be very restricting. So it's all about understanding what your climate looks like. And I always encourage businesses to think like futurists. How relevant is this going to be as an issue in the next 10 years? Is it worth investing in as you go along in the next 10 years or so to come? And then once you actually get to that, it'll start to make a lot more sense. And I'm guessing that might have been the perspective that you'd taken when you made the call that you made.
Thanks.
So it's not exactly my call to make in that sense. And I think that's part of where it becomes quite difficult, where I'm all for education. I mean, I'll watch a course in an evening just because I'm interested in a subject, not necessarily because there's any value in it. So I very much subscribe to what you're talking about there. I think exactly to your point, what I've experienced in the company sense is that you can't grow because you're consistently stuck on this support, and it's easier to just fix it yourself than talk to someone else and teach them how to fix that, and then you feel like you can't go on holiday.
Exactly. You see, it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why you need to just, like, education is one of those things you need to just kill at once, invest in it, understand that it's going to take a lot of time, but it saves you so much later on when that guy does want to go on holiday, when you do want to go on holiday. Then there is that to fall back on. So
Okay,
all the best with that.
We've got a question from Mortale Pule.
Yes, I don't know where to look. Oh, there.
Hi. Yeah, thanks very much, Zanele. That was quite insightful. So my question is around relationships during a disruption. What insights can you share with us in terms of managing that?
Are we speaking about all types of relationships?
Yeah, maybe relationships like in a business or work environment, and interpersonal relationships, like maybe relationships at home, because the one partner is possibly in an environment where there's a lot of disruptions, and that uncertainty and the anxiety, etc., they bring it home. So how would you, as I say, just what insights do you have in terms of how?
Let me see if I can share something here that might help us. So just to go back to transitions, the transitions are actually 3-staged. And this is, I advise that if you want to pick up a nice read, Managing Transitions by William Bridges is a really good one to read. Let me go on to this quickly. Okay, it's fine. Okay, it's all right. I won't share it. So what he advises is that the very first stage of any kind of transition or disruption, you can use it for disruption as well, is the letting go. And it's too often that we expect people to move on from something when we don't understand what they're letting go. So I always advise, especially with interpersonal relationships and any kind of relationships, that we understand what it is the person feels they're losing by changing. And especially during the time of COVID-19, what are you afraid of letting go of at this time? Because if you think about it yourself, you understand that there are routines and even emotions associated with who you used to be that you're now having to let go of. And it's that crisis mode that your brain goes into, and that stage that carries a lot of denial, because that you're not quite ready to let that part of you go. And then comes the middle stage. And in the middle stage, there's a lot of, I've let go of who I used to be somewhat, but I'm still not too sure if there's something on the other side for me. So that comes from a lot of not understanding what you're going to grab hold of. Whether it's as a business, what does our future look like? Can our future as a business actually sustain me as an individual? Does it look secure enough? And then even with the relationship as well, where are we going as this relationship, or as this partnership that we formed? What do we look like on the other side? And unless, think back to the trapeze, unless I feel safe enough to make the jump from where I am, where I was very secure, to where I see myself, or where we see ourselves going, I'm not particularly going to make the jump. So it needs a lot of patience and a lot of understanding that people need to start off with letting go. And once we deal with letting go, it becomes a lot easier for a person to make a jump from something that has almost become a default. Think about that picture of the woman. You saw the man at first and it was so easy. And then all of a sudden there was just this discomfort because you felt like you were snatched from something you've been very used to for a long time. And that's what disruption feels like. And that's what it felt like for most of us. Some people still still haven't moved into their new normal for COVID, because they're still holding on to who they used to be, who their businesses used to be, or who they used to be as individuals. And so it's dealing with that loss that comes first. And that's strongly what I advise that you deal with first. And then make the person see the vision of where the relationship is going to be on the other side of letting go of what it used to be. I hope that helps.
Right. Thanks, Zanele. I was curious on that one comment you made from being a primary school teacher, and in the next moment you are teaching people here in the corporate world, but you're teaching them on a topic of unlearning, which is a very structured environment. So there must be a story there. Can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on what made you do that jump and unlearning and teaching corporates how to unlearn?
Sure. So I did allude to it a little bit in my presentation. It was exactly what I spoke about, that I started to realize that a lot of the traits that organizations have, and you'll notice this with the World Economic Forum and at Tomorrow Today, we also have a set of skills that are the skills for the future that organizations need to embody if they want to see themselves sustaining in the future and staying relevant in the future. Some organizations will do about 8 of those skills, some will do more, and then they'll go out and people will think, okay, let's make sure we have all of these skills. We're tech savvy, we horizon scan, and all of these different skills. And what I started to look at was actually, while I was teaching, I was doing a little bit of speaking here and there in the corporate world, but not full time. I started to realize that children, but in the children's sense, we actually phrase them as creativity. We phrase them as resilience. When children get back up after they've fallen, or a child unfortunately doesn't move on to the next grade, but at the end of the year, they're so happy to move on. And it's almost as if that slate has been wiped completely clean. And all of those characteristics, like your resilience, your creativity, and even one of them that I included was happiness. I think that was another one that I noted. The children come into everything with a positive attitude, and they exude this positivity that whatever happens in this task, I am going to make sure that I do my best, that I make it work. And even if I don't get it, I'll roll on the floor and everything will be okay. And those traits, actually, if you take a look at it, and I challenge you to go over tonight to the World Economic Forum and see some of the skills that they advise would be the skills for the 2020s, and think about those skills in light of children, because children have all of those skills. And once it started to click in my mind, that means that we had them once upon a time. That means that they were never a challenge for you and I at one point in our lives. Now that we're trying to go all the way back to them. And a funny example is if you look at organizations like Google, who've started to install various forms of play in the workplace so that individuals who are now grown-ups, so to speak, can have an opportunity to play at work. So you can jump into a ball pit at work just so that you can do your work better. And I thought, no, that should definitely tell us something. There is something that you and I need to learn from children that we're clearly not grasping, that we had once upon a time and we've completely lost. So it's all of those types of things that I started to pick up, and I said, no, actually we need to start to take notice of of that, and understand that we don't need to learn new skills. We just need to unlearn where we've gotten to and go back to who we used to be. It's in there. And if you're a man, it may come a little bit easier to be childish, no offense, but it may come a little bit easier to be a little bit kiddie to you. And that's the part that we want. It's the part that plays around, that gets things wrong, that flips things on its head and sees other perspectives. That's the part that creates unicorn companies. If you meet people like Graham Codrington has told me the story of when he met Bill Gates and how he's such an interesting character, and you can tell by the way that he converses with people that he thinks differently. You meet these people and they're just so kiddie or childish, for lack of a better word, because their brains are not restricted in the way that they think and the way that they view things. And I think we can all be like that. And we're all like that in certain moments where you just get an insight and you go, oh my goodness. And then someone next to you goes, I can't believe I didn't see that. Why didn't I think of that? And I know I've had a lot of moments where I go, oh, why didn't I think of that? It's because I was still stuck in my fixedness and I was restricted about what I saw. But when we come out of that and we unlearn, you go back to the child inside you. So tonight, when you get home, maybe swing on the chandelier or do something that's going to take you back. I see Dawn laughing. That's going to take you back to where you used to be and stimulate that part of yourself. Please don't swing on the chandelier. I'm just joking.
I'm actually sorry I got you on this topic because you now undone all the hard work that Gavin and Ivan and myself worked on for this last 3 years to try and grow up the little boy in our midst, sitting there with his Q hat on, and now he will just keep replaying us your tape. So thank you very much, Zanele, for undoing our hard work. All right,
we'll send Trevor to you, Zanele.
Oh no. I take it all back, the whole presentation.
Yeah, the only trouble is you'll have to take him back to nursery school, so you can't deal with him in the corporate world.
Yeah, and she's no longer there to look after him. She's moved on. So he'll be stuck. All right. You know what? This is the end of our session for today. And Zanele, I'm going to start with you. But I'd like everybody just to, some of us, and those who stayed almost on for the whole day, I'll let you speak last. But how did you get to be introduced to the chamber and be our speaker for today? I'm just curious.
Sure. I stalked Trevor on LinkedIn. He can tell you a little bit more, but I stalked him on LinkedIn during the times of when COVID started to come around. I thought, okay, this is a time when businesses need a lot of help. I reached out to clients that I've worked with and they said, we need someone to speak to us. We're going through a lot. And I thought that if my clients that I've worked with have gone through this, then a lot of businesses are also going, oh my goodness, we could use a lot of help. And so I thought chambers are the best people to speak to when it comes to people who have direct relationships with businesses and people who work with entrepreneurs. So I thought, let me reach out to Trevor and have an opportunity to just spread some of that insight to other people.
No, thanks for connecting with him and becoming our speaker today. But in coming to the virtual trade fair, what was your expectations prior to today? And what have you found now that you probably have checked out a bit of our exhibition so far? So what's your comment?
Sure. So I definitely expected what I got. So it's just a forum of individuals, and I did do a little bit of research on Facebook, looked at the Facebook group and looked at some of the work that you do, looked at the website. So I was able to see who you were, and I came in prepared for this group and for the people that are in the room, and understanding that although the group is maybe a little bit intimate, but there's definitely a lot of growth, a lot of insight here. And this is a perfect platform to actually spread some of this knowledge. And I think that the aim of the trade fair was so perfect. And the intention for me, when Trevor sent me the intentions for this type of forum, it was so spot on about helping businesses at this time, and not necessarily being someone who's hogging or anything of the such, but it's about really spreading some of that love, especially in a time when everyone is all zoomed out and just, feeling like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. but I think that the intentions for me were a big seller. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for that. I'm quickly going to run through the room. Some of them, I don't know your name. I just see, so if you can start preparing yourself. Sublime Fruitions, who are you? And after you, I'm going to ask Ryan to just give his feedback. So just your impression, if this is your only session for today, or if you had other sessions during the day as well, just your impressions. Sublime, are you there? Okay, I don't know who that person is. Ryan, would you like to come back on? And after you, Kena Nkoma.
Yeah, so I didn't have a lot of time today, unfortunately, full-time job. So this was my only session. I really enjoyed it. Very much subscribe to that behavior myself. So preaching to the choir. And yeah, the content was insightful, concise, which is really great. I'm hoping that some of this will be available afterwards so I can skim through the content in my own time. But yeah, enjoyed it.
So make sure you visit our networking lounge and leave your contact details there so that we can communicate afterwards on what is available and any new event that might happen. All right, Ken. And then after Ken, Dean.
Hi, everybody. I wasn't prepared to say anything. I thought I'd just listen. But wow, what a session. Thank you so much, Zanele. I'm very stretched where I am now. And I'm thinking, my goodness, I've got a lot to do, a lot of unlearning and relearning to do. But thank you so much. And I am planning to join you guys again tomorrow. Today, I thought I would just sit quietly and say nothing. But thank you so much for the opportunity to give feedback.
Thank you, Kenna. Dean, and after Dean, Luther. Dean, are you there? All right, we switch to Luther, and after Luther, Becky.
I have a bit of a halo at the back. Brilliant presenter, brilliantly presented. Thank you very much. Topical, very essence, and I applaud your input. It was great to listen to you. I hope our paths cross in the future because I think we have a lot in common, how we can change South Africa and the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luther. Becky, and after Becky, Mark. All right. Becky, okay. Yes.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited for today's session. I actually, when I first started, I thought I'm really surrounded by wealth coaches and big people, and such a small Becky, I'm not sure where to get, you know, that type of, like, a young person that can, you know, that can motivate. But after Zanele's presentation, I was really, I'm so excited. I think the language was quite huge, was big for me, but Zanele just unpacked it all. You know, it's just something that we dream to have, you know. Unlearning certain things is something that I need to work on, and I've got a lot of things, you know, that I need to do for the community as well, you know, for generational inheritance group. I really excited. I'm looking forward to tuning in tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Becky. And who did I say was next after Becky? Did I? Motla Lepule.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, no, it's been amazing. I attended 2 sessions, this one and the one with Trevor earlier, and both of them just beautiful, insightful, very relevant, and I think that's what excites me, that you know, the relevance of what is being shared is exactly what we need today as business people, dealing with, like, the outcomes of the pandemic and the future that has changed so much. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who organized. Really, really beautiful space. Yeah, looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Motlalepuli. Mark, I think I did ask you to speak, and then I forgot to ask you. So, and after you, Peter Brown.
Yeah, well done to you guys for putting this together. Certainly, I was only able to join the last sort of 2 sessions, but I'm quite impressed with the way in which it has been done, and then also just to all the speakers that certainly I've been involved with. Great stuff, Zanele. Really enjoyed your session. Probably will hook up with you on LinkedIn, and yeah, wishing you guys all of the best, and I'll certainly be looking out for this event going forward. It's certainly inspirational in terms of maybe me taking the next steps to becoming an entrepreneur. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. And then after you, Patson.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you get to hear more in-depth stories, which is not always necessarily always possible. Let's say when in our shorter meetings, so a lot more to think about, and I think that it might be useful to just almost what would be the next steps on like driving forward any discussions. Around, as Trevor had said earlier, possible projects that could come out of these sessions. So maybe that's a final wrap up that we have to do at the end of all of this.
Thanks, Peter. Patson? And after Patson, we'll go to Irene.
Hi again, guys. To all the speakers, I think they just have to give themselves a big round of applause. To the organizers, this has been so valuable to me, and hopefully to everyone who participated today. I connected, although I'm having a tender that I'm still busy with, which is closing on Monday. But on all what I heard, on all the speakers, Trevor Kettle, Sue, Zanele, guys, it's like you knew exactly what I needed. And guys, a big round of applause to all of you, the organizers. This is a good, it's the best platform for us, the newcomers in business. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patson. Irene, and then after Irene, Stella.
Thanks, Jasper. Zanele, I just would like to say your presentation was absolutely fantastic. You did the graveyard shift absolute justice, so thank you for that. I think the unlearning is a little bit of something we could all teach ourselves going forward. So yeah, great for everybody, really good. Trevor, thank you for a fantastic program and everybody involved. And I'm looking very forward to the last 3 days. It's going to be very exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Irene. Stella, and then Dawn.
First of all, Zanele, thank you so much. That was brilliant. You had gripping from the beginning to the end. It was really the best save for last for today. Not to take away any of the other speakers, they were all brilliant as well. I've learned so much today, and I can't believe we've been sitting in Zoom since 9 o'clock this morning. It didn't feel like the whole day. It was so good that you didn't realize the time. So thank you so much again for Trevor and his team and everyone that put this together. And I'm so glad it's actually for 4 days, not just 1 day. It was brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. Dawn, and then after Dawn, we'll start wrapping up with the management. Gavin, I'll go to you next.
Thank you, everybody. Zanele, like I said, you're shining light, a really inspirational presentation. And just for Mark and everyone else, Mark, don't miss out Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, if you can make it. So there's still time to see lots of fabulous speakers. And the only time I've sat this long is maybe flying to Australia, because I've sat the whole day on this couch. It's been hectic. I didn't want to miss a thing. It's been incredible. And I'm sure our whole team is just blown away by our first day. And thank you to everybody for this amazing opportunity. And this is only going to grow and grow and grow. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn, Gavin, then Ivan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting away from the 4 screens in front of me. My eyes are getting a bit old for this sort of nonsense. I've been basically chasing all sorts of things all day in front of me, and I'm feeling a bit old and tired at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to a decent cup of something or a decent glass of something and closing my eyes effectively.
But what was your, could you, Gavin, could you pick up from, I know you've been involved with keeping the engine going there, but just your look at your feel of, you know, we planned this thing and now it's been birthed, and just your first impressions?
People are always better than people anticipate. Whenever something like this gets put together, I'm always very pleasantly surprised at how good people are. And it's an absolute pleasure to watch what's going on when people get a chance to talk. So, wow.
Thanks. Then Ivan, after you, Trevor.
Great, thanks, Jasper. And yeah, I just got to echo everything that everybody's said, you know, and Zanele especially, you know, I love being taken back to primary school and given an MBA education at the same time. What an absolute pleasure that presentation was to end off the day with. So yeah, stunning. You know, I think it's exceeded all our expectations for the day, and it's, yeah, from strength to strength. You know, we keep these connections going and grow them, and you know, get more and more people part of this. It's just going to go from strength to strength, and everyone's going to benefit. So I've loved it. It's been fantastic, and really appreciative of everybody who's participated in the day's event. Much appreciated.
Right, thanks, Ivan. Then our naughty child in the room.
No, I'm just so inspired by the quality of individual that stalks me. So bring them all on, and may the stalkers prevail. Yes, it was absolutely fantastic. What an incredible day, and to the entire team, I mean, you've done yourself justice, all the members justice, and I can tell you the networking that's going around the world from this is unbelievable. So just watch how we springboard off this platform, and it's only day one, 25% down. I think that is, there's another, how many, 25 from 100? No, so there's a couple more days to go.
So guys, that brings us to the end of day one, and a fantastic session. And again, thanks for Ivan and Gavin there in the background, just driving the engine so that all can happen smoothly. You don't know how much they had to deal with behind the scenes, but for you know, building a plane on the fly, I think this plane hasn't done too bad today, and there wasn't even for the passengers too much of a turbulence or nothing. Like they also said within the comments, this is just the start. There's 3 more days of exciting speakers, and so take a bit of a break and relax, but get the word out to your networks, tell them your enjoyment of today, and see if we can get some more people on for tomorrow. And I was really struck by that one slogan of yours, I think it was Lennon, that said there are decades of nothing happening, and then weeks in which decades are happening. And I almost thought that summarized you know, what we have been gone through this last couple of weeks. But like Scotty also said, it's not that we only did it this last 3 weeks. This last 3 weeks was just the culmination of the preparedness for the last 3 years. And now all of a sudden, what's happened and what we now put in practice for this last 3 months, and what we are launching in this next 4 days, is going to put us decades ahead of the people who are still, another saying says, they're so married to the past that they divorced from the future. So let's all Enjoy the rest of the evening. See you tomorrow morning at 9 with our opening session. And thanks again to everybody for participation.